Continuing in our daily study of Maimonides, the Rambam, as per the Chabad learning program of Rambam, we're up to Yesodei HaTorah, chapter 6. Whoever destroys one of the holy and pure names with which the Holy One, blessed be He, is called, is liable for lashes according to scriptural law. I don't know what they mean by destroy. I don't know what he means by that. If it's on a piece of paper, does it mean that the paper's ripped up or burned? Or you can't destroy a name. It's not a physical thing. So I don't know what he means by that. But he says that this prohibition is derived as follows. With regard to the worship of false gods, Deuteronomy 12:3-4 states, "And you shall destroy their names from this place. Do not do this to God your Lord." So I don't know what they mean by destroying their name, and he doesn't really explain it. But he just says, he just goes based on what the Torah says. Okay. Alright. So, however destroying can work, if someone does that, then they shouldn't do it. And they get whipped, according to the Maimonides. Okay, there are 7 names for God. The name which is written Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey, this refers to God's explicit name, and it is also written Aleph Daled Nun Yud. There's the name El, and there's the name Eloha, there's the name Elohim, there's the name Elohei, and there's the name Shaddai, and the name Tzivaot. Whoever erases even one letter, I guess he means erases. Whoever erases even one letter from any of these 7 names is liable for lashes. Wow. I didn't know that. All the letters which are connected to God's name but are placed before the name itself may be erased. Meaning the lamed of Le-Adon, like La Hashem, like Lamed Aleph Daled Nun Yud, or the name, the Be Elohim. They do not possess the same degree of holiness as God's name itself. All the letters which are connected to God's name. This comes up, like let's say on the computer screen, can you erase? I think computer screen, you can. And I vaguely remember hearing it, because computer screen is not really written down. It's just electric glyphs, lit up glyphs. It's not really written. And it's no different than, here's how I saw it, like in, if you're thinking about something and then you don't think about it anymore, you erased that thought in your mind. You changed thoughts, it's no longer existing. So I think a computer screen is very much like a human mind or human brain, however you want to call it. It's like, it's there, but it's like electrical currents that can change at any time. And it's not so ironclad as you might think. Even if someone has, and that's the really, that's the encouraging thing about some person, like I can definitely testify for myself, who has dealt with, and I think many people do, but I definitely had thoughts that I did, unwanted thoughts I didn't want there, and they keep coming back and presenting like they were my own thoughts, and I can't get rid of them. I was really tormented by it in the past, and horrible kinds of thoughts. Thoughts that are, thank God, they're not as prevalent as they used to be. They're not as aggressive. But in the past, I would say 15, 20 years ago, it was horrible. And incessant, and I will say loud. And so I got off this tangent because of what we're talking about here, that to erase a name on paper is different than erasing the name inside the mind or on a computer. So that was what I would say about if there's a name on the computer and erasing Hashem's name to press delete button. That's not a problem. That's just like thinking about it and not thinking about it. But I'm not saying that you should do it. If you feel that you shouldn't, then don't. But I think it's no different than thinking about God's name and then not thinking about it anymore. I think it's equivalent to that. It's not written in your mind, and it's also not written on the computer screen. But anyway, all the letters which are connected to God's name, but placed after the name itself. For example, the final chaf Elohecha, or the chaf and the final mem Elohechem, and the like may not be erased. They are considered like the other names of God's name because the name conveys holiness upon them. Although holiness is conveyed upon them, and it is forbidden to erase them, nevertheless, a person who erases these letters which are connected to God's name is not liable for lashes. However, he does receive stripes for rebellious conduct. I guess if he did it intentionally. Okay? If one writes, and to erase something, it seems you'd have to have intentional, or maybe you didn't know. Or, if one writes the aleph and the lamed of the name Elohim, or the yud and the hey of yud and hey and vav and hey, these letters may not be erased. Needless to say, the name yud and hey may not be erased. It is considered as a name in its own right because it is part of God's explicit name. However, if one writes the shin and the daled in the name shin daled yud, and or the tzadi and the bet in the name of Tzivaot, these letters may be erased. Other descriptive terms which are used to praise the Holy One, blessed be He, for example, the gracious, the merciful, the great, the mighty, the awesome, the faithful, the jealous, the powerful, and the like, Tzchanun, Rachum, Hagadol, Gibor, V'Arav, and Ne'eman, Kana, Chazak, and like, are considered as other holy texts, but may be erased. When God's name is written on a utensil, one should cut off God's name and bury it. Even when God's name is engraved on a metal or glass utensil and one melts the utensil, one is liable for lashes. Instead, one should cut off God's name and bury it. It sounds weird to even say that. Cut off God's name. I mean, you can't. Just the words sounded weird. Okay, but anyway, you should cut off the portion where God's name is written and bury it. Out of respect. Similarly, if God's name was written on one's flesh, like a tattoo, one should not wash or anoint oneself, nor may one stand in a place of filth. If it occurs that such a person must immerse because of a mitzvah, he should then wind reeds around the name and immerse himself. If he cannot find reeds, he should wind his clothes around it, but should not wind them tightly so he will not become an intervening substance, katsisa. This is acceptable because the reason he is required to wind reeds around is only because it is forbidden to stand before God's presence, God's name, when naked. Okay? A person who removes even one stone from the altar, the temple building, or the temple courtyard with a destructive intent is liable for lashes. The prohibition is derived as follows. With regard to the worship of false gods, Deuteronomy 12:3 states, "And you shall tear down their altars." And the following verse continues, "Do not do this to God your Lord." Similarly, a person who burns wood belonging to the temple with a destructive intent is liable for lashes. The prohibition is derived as follows. With regard to the worship of false gods, Deuteronomy 12:3 states, "And you shall burn there asherot with fire," and the following verse continues, "Do not do this to God your Lord." It is forbidden to burn or destroy by direct action any sacred texts, their commentaries, and their explanations. A person who destroys them by his direct action is given stripes for a rebellious conduct. To what does the above apply? A sacred text written by a Jew with a sacred intent. However, should a Jewish heretic write a Torah scroll, it and the name of God it contains must be burned, since he does not believe in the sanctity of God's name, and he did not compose it for this purpose. Rather, I mean, it's kind of interesting. I mean, like, you would think that he's saying that you should burn, but to burn God's name, I mean, God shouldn't be affected by a heretic. I mean, just because a heretic writes the name of God, how does that affect God? God's always going to be God. Why is a person why is this heretic being given so much power? You know, you have to burn it when he writes God's name. Who is he? Is what I'm saying. Who is he? He's nothing. But God's name is always something, and it can't be affected by people. So that's why I don't understand why you have to burn it if he writes it. But anyway, it should be just as holy as any other thing. Rather, he considers this to be similar to any other ordinary text. Since this is his intent, the names of God, he writes, do not become holy. Again, God doesn't have to become holy. God is always holy. God's name is always holy, and it doesn't matter who writes it. That's where I don't understand what he's saying here. But anyway, it's a mitzvah to burn it so that no remembrance will be left of the heretics of their deeds. In contrast, if a Gentile writes God's name, it should be buried. Similarly, sacred texts that have become worn out or which were written by Gentiles should be buried. All the names of God written in the passage concerning Abraham and the angels are sacred. Even the name of God in Genesis 18:3, my Lord, if I have found favor in your eyes, is also sacred. All the names of God written in the passage concerning Lot are not sacred, except Genesis 18 through 19. And Lot said to him, O God, no, I have found favor in your eyes, and you have saved my life. Al na Adonai hine na matza avdecha chen. All the names of God written in the passage concerning the hill of Benjamin are sacred. All the names of God written in the passage concerning Micah are not sacred. All the names of God written in the passage concerning Avot are sacred. Every mention of the name Shlomo in the Song of Songs is sacred, except 8:12. You, Shlomo, may have the 1,000. Every mention of the word king in the book of Daniel is not sacred, except 237. You are the king of kings. But that's about Nebuchadnezzar, isn't it? He called him the king of kings. I'm not sure why he would say that. Antu Malka Melech Malchaya. Or is he talking about God? Must be talking about God, but I'll check it out. You are the king of kings. Its status is like other descriptive terms for God. Okay, that's it for today.